Alright, as you guys could tell probably by the title, this video is going to be about a basing and painting of this Krieg dog proxy. Pretty much you can see I've started planning it out in these first few clips. Like, I've cut out the foam where I'm going to have the terrain raised because I want to have a puddle in the middle, as you probably saw by the little circle cut out. And then I also obviously have that sign there. It's going to be a minefield because this particular dog is going to be a kamikaze dog, actually. It's going to have an anti-tank mine on the top. So, and yeah, what I'm doing right now is I'm dry brushing the entire model because I'm going to use a contrast paint, which is going to be the Space Wolves contrast paint for the fur. And yeah, basically, my rule of thumb when dry brushing is you want to have the brush just a little bit wet at first and like just barely damp. And then you can probably tell by my hand, I've been using my hand as like a dry like palette, I guess, to brush off the excess paint until I have the desired amount coming off with each stroke. And then pretty much I get a nice coat around the entire model, and then I go back around again and go from top down to do sort of like a sunlight effect. So yeah, you can kind of see that more like on the top of the head and on the, on the tail. But yeah, and now I'm applying that Space Wolves contrast paint, and I've also painted pretty much the entire rest of the dog by this point. I think, yes, I most definitely skipped ahead here. Painted all the metal parts and all the leather bits off camera because that stuff was pretty tedious, I'm not gonna lie. And yeah, so that's the dog finished, and there he is fitting onto the base. I also primed the base at this point, as you can tell. And yeah, that is the full dog. He's got some grenades, like for grenade launcher, you know, on both sides, and then some stick grenades and some pouches on his other side, and then that thing in his mouth. I think it's a key, but pretty much pretending it's going to be the pin to the landmine that's going to be on his back. And, you know, like he pulled the pin out himself and he's running at something, which it definitely does look like he is running at something. And so yeah, now here I am applying the texture paste. I'm using Sterling Mud. Pretty much, yeah, simple, besides leaving that one spot open on the side for where the puppy will, slide into, because I am going to be, I actually did this part, I believe, before I painted the entire Krieg puppy, and I wanted to be able to, obviously, get into all the nooks and crannies, so I based the thing, left that little spot, as you can see, and then right here, as we're doing right now, dry brushing the entire model after it's dried with Krieg khaki, because I like that nice greenish tint that it kind of gives off. And then you're gonna see also we'll wash it with Agrax Earthshade right after. But yeah, anyways, leaving that spot open allows for me to just place the dog in there after I finish painting him, which I had done by this point, as you can see. And then, yeah, I'll just slide them back in and glue them there, and then fill in the gaps, which you will also be able to see. Alright, and then here's where the Agrax Earthshade part begins. And obviously, you should probably do this to whenever you're basing a miniature, or just whenever you're using texture paste, because it'll get into all those little divots and all those little cracks and everything and make it look all nice. And on top of that, doing that after, or before and after explicitly, the the dry brush, you are able to not make it so green from the Krieg khaki, but you keep the little greenish tint and then make it more like brown highlights rather than tan, if that makes any sense. Like it just makes it blend into the soil more, a lot easier. And then you can see here doing the same thing to the part of the dog. And then right here with the pipettes, a little hard to see on that bottle, but had some liquid resin that I pulled in there, and you can see it right here. It's looking pretty good, nice and glossy. And right after this, I believe I applied a layer of Agrax Earthshade on top, and that made it look pretty murky and nice, but I did not take a video of that. And then right here is me attaching a little piece of twine to a modified Lego stud that I cut up and then painted and am now gluing to this thing, and that is going to act as my landmine. And so yeah, I'm just going to glue that onto the back of the dog, and then I will cut the ends of each twine and also glue that to the dog. That way it looks like it's fully attached. Right here is the finished painted Krieg dog that I have, and basically, yeah, you can see all the grenade launcher shells on both sides, the stick grenades, pouches, and then obviously the anti-tank mine on the top now. And if you didn't understand what I meant by the pin coming out of the dog's mouth, maybe you do now. I don't know, but yeah, here now I'm gluing the dog onto the base because they're both pretty much done. However, there is gonna be pretty noticeable gaps, as you can see probably. And we're gonna have to fill those in with texture paste, which we're doing right here. And once that's done and dried, we will do the exact same process, which you'll be able to see that we did with the rest of the base, with the dry brushing of Krieg Khaki and then rewashing again with Agrax Earthshade in order to achieve the best look. And then you can also see, like I said earlier, or maybe I didn't say it, I don't really remember, but I was applying some texture paste also to the dog's paws to simulate him like it looked like he was running through the mud, which he had been. Alright, and then pretty much the last step gotta do here is just grab some Abaddon Black and start doing that all around the edge of that miniature, because everything else has been painted and finished up. Only last thing that I would need to do after this point is just spray it with some gloss. I meant to say matte varnish, but I said gloss varnish because I was thinking of that I am going to put resin back on top of the puddle after matte varnishing it in order to return the glossiness back to the puddle. But my brain, not being able to process more than one thing at a time, decided to switch up the two and then ditch one idea entirely and then spit it out as I was recording. Alright, and then here is the finished model. And basically, I did one other thing behind the scenes because I wanted to test it, and also because I thought it would look cool. I don't know if you spotted it, but I put some, I believe it's pronounced Nicolax oxide on the emblem of the helmet. But besides that, I didn't change anything else. And yeah, this is, oh yeah, you can also see the Agrax Earth shade on the puddle there too. But yeah, pretty much finished model. Loved how it turned out. Painted the dog in about one night, and the rest of the base took about 4 nights because of the drying times. And then here's a list of all the paints that I used, and then I hope you guys have a great night.